Hello there, Tolkien Fanatics. I am back with an army review that has been asked for by a follower of the channel, and I would like to thank them right now for this. So, shout out to David for asking about the Kingdom of Khazad-dûm and getting an army review for it. So, Kingdom of Khazad-dûm used to be one of my favorite armies to play in the old edition before the new one came out in 2018. Um, the new edition is great. I've talked about it before many a times. It made a lot more things thematic. Unfortunately, when it did that, it kind of killed how the Kingdom of Khazad-dûm, known as Durin's folk at that time, could be played to make them a little bit more competitively. And I'll explain why after I've gone through the profiles. So, Kingdom of Khazad-dûm, it's got a fair amount of profiles, to be completely honest. There's about 8 or so, maybe. I'm trying to do a quick count through my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, eight profiles for heroes, and then 6 profiles for warriors. So let's go ahead and jump into it and start talking about it. And honestly, we get to the first profile, and it's my favorite one, and that's Durin, the king of Khazad-dûm himself. So Durin is a butt-kicking hero, and unfortunately, because he's a dwarf, he is a great hero for kicking butt, but he just lacks some really good finishing power and killing power due to the fact that the only way to really maximize his killing ability is to get traps, since he can't be mounted and has no ability to get knocked down for traps. You've got to be able to get traps with the models you have. And unfortunately, Kingdoms of Khazad-dûm doesn't really lend itself to that, just due to the cost of the troops and how you want to play them. So he is fight 6, which is great. So you know he's the typical fight 6 that you expect from a big hero, not an elf. That's not an elf. Looking at you, Thranduil. His war gear includes heavy mithril armor, which is what makes him defense 9, Durin's axe, the ring of Durin, the crown of kings, and the horn of Ziraxiel. So he's got a lot of stuff. And pretty much all that named items gives him a lot of bonuses, which makes him why he's so good. I think he was the same points under the old edition. I don't think he got pointed up. I may be wrong, but he wasn't quite as good. He had some of this stuff, but not all of it. So he does have 3 attacks and 3 wounds as well. He is Courage 6 and 3/3/1 for Might, Will, Fate, respectively. That makes sense, having that 1 for the Fate, due to the fact that unfortunately he does die. But I think he should honestly have at least 2, because yes, he did die, but it's not like he did something wrong. You know, he did found. He funded, found. There we go. He made Khazad-dûm. How about that? There we go. Let's not try and get into proper grammatical terms. But going through his stuff, he has Durin's axe, which is a master forged 2-handed axe. Additionally, you get to reroll a single dice when making dual rolls. So master forged basically means you go 2-handed without taking a -1 penalty. So you're going to get +1 to wound every time you're making strikes, which is good because he's strength 4. I wish he was strength 5. To me, it just kind of seems like a knock, since a lot of the new dwarf models just seem so much better. Of course, there was that ridiculous power creep with the hobbits, so no surprise there, really. And he gets to reroll a dice. So now you're kind of getting 4 quote-unquote dice in an attack. In a combat. Then he has the Ring of Durin, and that is... it gives him the ability to reroll a single priority once during the game. Excuse me. Oh man, I'm sorry. Late in the afternoon. I've done a lot of work today. But yeah, he gets to reroll. So you get a chance to reroll priority. And now that means if you've won a priority that you don't want, you can reroll and try and lose. So don't forget that. People think like, oh yeah, I can use this to reroll priority or affect my priority roll, like foresight points at Elrond. You can choose to lose a priority. If there's a priority you don't want to win, like you've broken your opponent, they've got Courage 2 guys or Courage 1 guys, and they're going to have to make Courage checks galore because they have no heroes left, or there's just guys that are sitting on objective markers with low courage, and you don't want to win priority, and you have the ability to change your priority to maybe lose it, go for it. Absolutely no reason why you can't do that, you know? Moving on, we have the Crown of Kings, which was also mentioned. And that is every time he suffers a wound, roll a dice, and on a 6, it is ignored as if a fate point was spent. So he's got in built-in channeled fury, basically, which is really cool. Now, you should try and do that with every wound before choosing to do so with your 1 fate point. He is defense 9, so it is going to take a lot to wound him, but having the 16% chance to stop a wound is nothing to laugh at. Especially because he's probably going to be a leader since he's a hero legend. Then the last thing he has is the Horn of Zirak-Ziggle. It is a war horn, and it gives him terror. So he's basically Courage 7. 6 base is a war horn, so he's going to be Courage 7. And then he's going to cause terror. So this is a guy that you really don't want to mess with. He's hard to get through. He's beefy. He's tanky. He's, like I said, he is a beast. Unfortunately, he just really lacks killing power. He has staying power for sure, especially with high defense 9. The ability to win fights because you're going to get a reroll. And, you can also use a banner too. Because it doesn't say that the Durin's axe where he can reroll a single dice does not say that he's affected by a banner, which would negate his ability to be affected by a banner. But if he's re-rolling, you can choose to re-roll one of your dice, and then if you still use a banner effect to re-roll another dice. Because remember, you can't re-roll a re-roll, so it's not like you can roll the same number twice. But if you say you throw a 3-3-1, you can choose to use the Durin's axe ability to reroll the 1. You roll it to a 1 because it's me rolling. Then you can choose to roll one of the 3s and see if you can't get another better number if you have a banner nearby, which I think you should definitely do. So moving on, he has Heroic Strike, Heroic Defense, and Heroic Challenge. Now, I think I've seen one challenge be done before, and it was against Aragorn. And Aragorn slaughtered him. And that was in a really goofy, 2v2 game that we were playing. And it was fun, but he definitely got slaughtered by Aragorn, crazy as that sounds. Not really, because his Anduril just completely negates defense 9, and then he charges in and knocks you prone, so he's got 8 dice. So again, it's great being a tanky dwarf, but it really sucks not having knockdown power. And then he has Fearless for special rule, which is great. So not only is he going to cause you to courage check to charge him, he doesn't care if you got terror. And then his last rule is that he upgrades Khazad Guard in his warband to Hearthguard for +2 points, and then Hearthguard have Burly. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right over to Khazad Guard to try to show you why that's really good. So Khazad Guard is the elite, or one of the 2 elite units for Kings of the Khazad-dûm. And Khazad Guard are Fight 4, Strength 4, Defense 7, 1 attack, 1 wound, Courage 4. So if you take them and you've taken what's his name, Durin, they're going to be Courage 5 because of the Warhorn. They have Bodyguard, so they're going to ignore terror for courage checks. They have Heavy Dwarf Armor, a 2-handed axe, and an axe. So this is important because they are kind of expensive. They're not the most expensive. They're the lesser expensive of the 2 elite units that there are. But the fact that they have a 2-handed axe and an axe allows them, with being burly, to go ahead and go 2-handed. So they're basically can openers, and they're strength 4. So they're charging in against defense 7 things. Your defense 7 shield wall with Minister, they don't care. They're wounding you on 5s. So yeah. It's really, really good. And then if you're defense 6, they're wounding you on 5s with the +1 wound makes it 4 because of burly 2-handed axe. So these guys, you take Durin, it's a very good idea to take. I usually try to get at least 8, if not 10. And yeah, that's a lot of points to sink into it for troops, but they can stay because they have defense 7. Then they're Courage 5, and they're Bodyguard. So these are guys that you're going to want on your front line. You're going to want to send them in there. You're not caring about Strength 2, Strength 3, Strength 4 bows and crossbows because you're Defense 7. Strength 2 is going to be wounding you on 6s by 4. Strength 3 and 4 is going to be wounding you on straight 6s. Take that shot. Take those chances of taking the wounds. Get them in there. Get them charging against Terror folks. Get them can opening stuff with that Strength 4 +1 to wound if you have them upgraded to Hearthguard. If you don't have them upgraded to Hearthguard, they're still very good because of their Strength 4. So, all right, let's jump back to Heroes now. Oh, excuse me. So the next one we have is Mardin. And Mardin is unfortunately just one of those like heroes that people like, but he's not very good, to be honest. He is fight 5, so not bad. Strength 4, defense 7, 2 attack, 2 wound, courage 5, 3 might, 1 will, 1 fate. He has dwarf armor and I'm gonna butcher this. Torozul. There you go. Torozul. That's what we'll call it. And Torozul is a foe spear with the Troll Bane special rule. Additionally, he adds +1 when rolling to wound against monster models. So pretty good. I can't remember what the Bane special rule is off the top of your head. I think it's like reroll 1s to wound or something like that. That sounds right. Yeah, because hatred I think is +1 and I don't know. Somebody double check me, let me know. I can't remember. But he does get +1 to wound against monsters too. So if he's fighting trolls, +1 to wound, plus I'm pretty sure Bane allows you to reroll 1s. I think it's free fainting. So yeah, and he's strength 4. So not bad. Not great. His only heroic action is heroic strength. He does have Swarm Protector to Durin though. And Swarm Protector gives him fearless pretty much. It's like Bodyguard, but Swarm Protector is the one where it only is named to a specific hero. So he's basically got Bodyguard to Durin. So he doesn't care about courage checks either. And being courage 5, obviously if you're gonna if your Swarm Protector is gonna work, you got to have Durin. He's gonna be courage 6. I know folks are probably going, okay, why do you keep talking about the courage if they're fearless? Well, it's important because there are plenty of things out there that wound courage. Army of the Dead is a very prevalent army right now because of the fact that the Return of the King Legendary Legion is very good. Don't sleep on it. I've seen it do very good at events. And, having that higher courage really helps against Blades of the Dead. So, moving on, the next person we have is Floi Stonehand, who is a much more prevalent one to have. Now, this is actually interesting with Floi. I'm going to run over his stats, and then I'll talk about his special rules. So he's fight 4, strength 4, defense 6, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 5, 1 might, 3 will, 1 fate. If your force contains Floi, then the only other named hero from this list that it may contain is Balin the Dwarf, King of Moria. All right? So, basically, Floi, for those who don't know, was the lore master of Balin during Balin's retaking of Moria. And yeah, so he has heavy armor and a staff. His 2 special rules: Lore Master. At the start of his move, Floi can spend a point to will to negate an enemy active or passive special rule, or the effects of a piece of war gear, with the exception of the 1 wing, until the end of the turn. There is no range for this ability, but Floi must have line of sight in order to use it. So I will say Floi is a really big pain in the ass. I have played Iron Hills against Kingdoms of Khazad-dûm, and Floi has spent a point of will every turn to negate the burly on my Dane, and Dane's only war gear is his 2-handed hammer. So here you have this big butt-kicking dwarf and Dane on his pig, and every time I roll, I have to take a -1. So that really hurt my ability to win fights and actually win the game. I lost the game because of that. So he only has 3 points of will, so you can only do it 3 times, right? Wrong. The Living Lore. Each time a friendly warrior dwarf model slays an enemy hero or monster model, Floi immediately recovers a point of will spent earlier in the battle. That's really good if you're fighting a horde army of some sorts, because usually horde armies have a lot of like little no-name captains running around. Think of Goblin Town, guys. I talked about Goblin Town. You get like 8 or 9 little no-name goblins running around. You take out, a couple of those. It's going to be a lot easier to take out those little no-name captains of the Goblin Town guys. You're going to be able to use Floi's ability a lot more to your advantage. So that is a big thing. So that's Floi. Then we move on to Balin. Balin is cool. Unfortunately, I think he's overpointed in this edition. He got pointed up. He is fight 6. Oh yeah, Floi has no heroic actions, by the way. outside of the normal ones that everybody has, being movement, shoot, and combat. So Balin is fight 6, strength 4, defense 8, so not bad. 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 6. 3-3-1 for Might Will Fate. He has heavy armor, endurance, axe. So with him having endurance, axe, he's going to get that +1 to wound, two-handed, without the -1 ability. Plus, he's going to get to dice, re-roll one of his dice in the fight. He has a special rule, Longbeard. And it's the same thing as Thorn's Company as before. In the priority phase, he may spend a will point to re-roll the d6 in the priority. So he's got 3 will points. So if you're fighting an army that doesn't have a caster, and you feel pretty confident, and maybe not even a lot of terror, so you feel confident, and you could do this 1, 2, 3 times a game, because you got 3 will points to try and roll and win, or lose the priorities like I talked about earlier. So here's the big crutch on Balin. If your army, this is long, guys, I'm going to say that right now. If your army includes Balin the Dwarf, King of Moria, it may not include any other named heroes from the Kingdom of Khazad-dûm army list, with the exception of Floi Stonehand. So basically, if you take Balin, you can't take Mardin, and you can't take Durin, which makes sense, because again, it's going back to theme. Additionally, if your army contains Balin, you may include Ori the Dwarf Champion Erebor, Owen the Dwarf Champion Erebor from the Erebor Reclaimed army list, and Gimli son of Glóin from the Fellowship army list, as heroes of fortitude for the time being. If your army has Balin as its leader, then you may wish to change the name of the army list to Kingdom of Moria instead. Doing that basically just means instead of being Kingdoms of Khazad-dûm, it's Kingdoms of Moria. All right? And that's important because of the fact that the keywords actually switch. So Mardin and Durin both have Khazad-dûm in their keywords, and then Balin and Floi have the Moria keyword. So doing so allows you to switch the keywords for, say, the captain, or the dwarf king, or the king's champion, which are the other 3 heroes we'll talk about in a second, to Moria. And it does the same thing for all the warriors as well. All right, because the warriors all have Khazad-dûm in their keywords, so you just switch it to kingdoms. So moving on, that's basically, and that's what the next statement says. It says Ori, Owen, Gimli, Dwarf King, Dwarf King, King's Champ, Dwarf Captain, Shieldbearer. That's another hero I forgot. My bad. Warriors, blah 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 blah. They're part of the same list as Balin. Exchange their Erebor or Khazad-dûm keyword for Moria. Okay, so that is important because keywords are very important in this current edition. And if you include Balin, then you are impossible allies with everybody because of the fact that Moria has lost contact with the outside world. So moving on, I'll cover these next few pretty quickly. Dwarf King, Dwarf Captain, they're pretty similar. I'll cover the differences. So King is fight 6, strength 4, defense 8, 2 attack, 2 wounds, courage 6, 2-2-1 for Might Will Fate. The Captain is fight 5, strength 4, defense 7, 2 attack, 2 wounds, courage 5, 2-1-1 for Might Will Fate. So basically an extra point of fight value, extra point of defense, and extra will point is kind of what makes up the difference in points. The King has Heroic Resolve and Heroic March, and the Captain has Heroic March. So usually people have started taking the King just due to the fact that you are going to spend a few points more, but you're going to have another Fight 6 hero, and you're going to have Heroic Resolve, and a hero who has 2 points of will and is Courage 6, so you've got a better chance of sticking around or passing Courage checks if need be. The war gear options are similar. Throwing axes and two-handed axe. The only difference is the Captain can take a shield, which would put him at defense 8 just like the King. All right. And then war gear, heavy dwarf armor and axe for the King, dwarf armor and axe for the Captain. So the King's Champion is the next one, and that is one of my favorite heroes. I think he's probably my second favorite hero after Durin for this army. He is kind of expensive, but he comes with 3 models, so you're boosting your model count pretty well. So he's fight 6, which is good. You got another fight 6 guy. Strength 5. Yeah, now we're talking. 3 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 5, 2-1-1 for Might Will Fate. So that's a little iffy for the Might Will Fate, but there's more. So he comes with heavy dwarf armor and 2 axes. He has heroic strike and heroic strength. So you only have 2 points of might, but you have the ability to strike up when you're already fight value 6, and then you have the ability to go from strength 5 to strength 8 because it's D3 doing heroic strength. So not bad. The King's Champ will always be the warband leader, and the Heralds count as independent heroes. So the Heralds, this King's Champion is made up of the champion and 2 Heralds. I didn't mention that, and I apologize. So the 2 Heralds are considered heroes, but they're independent heroes. So this is important to remember, too, that there are 2 Heralds, and they are counted as heroes, okay? So special rules, Herald's duty. When 2 Heralds of the King's Champion, when 2 Heralds or the King's Champion and a Herald are in base contact, they receive a +1 bonus to their defense. If both Heralds and the King's Champion are in base contact with each other, they all receive a +2 bonus. +2 bonus to their defense. So basically, you can get the King's Champ to defense 9 if you have them running in a little triangle. And the Heralds are nothing to laugh at. They're fight 4, so they're basically just warrior dwarves. Strength 4, which is good. Defense 7. So they're similar to Khazad-dûm or Khazad Guard. They actually have the exact same profile. Strength 4. Defense 7, fight 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 4. No might, 1 will, 2 fate. Alright? So the war gear includes the dwarf armor, shield, axe, and banner. Herald's duty, you see opposite, I already talked about that. Lifeguard. If the King's Champion is wounded, either Herald may expend their own fate points on the champion's behalf as long as they are in base contact. Note that they cannot suffer the wounds on the champion's behalf. They only use their fate points. So while the King's Champ only has a 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate profile, if you have a Herald in base contact with him, he essentially has 3 fate. If you have both of them, he has 5 fate. So pretty damn good. Now here's the downside to the Heralds, and I wish this is something that would be errata and changed, and I haven't seen it done. But I really feel like the dwarfs, especially since they're fight 4, are strong enough to not take a -1 penalty for fighting with a banner. Because the banner is in their profile, they take a -1. The Heralds take the -1 in combat. So that sucks ass. Not even gonna lie, it sucks ass. So basically what you do most times is if they get charged, because you never really put them in a combat, is just shield. And pray you get a 6 and that they don't roll a 5. Or if they do, or don't pray they don't roll a 6, basically, and hope you have the higher fight value on a 5. But the Heralds are pretty good. My tactic to run these guys is take Durin and a King's Champion and run one of the Heralds with Durin and one of the Heralds with the King's Champion. And I keep them close, but I usually keep a few warrior models in between them because as much as I'd love them to run on top of each other, it just gets too convoluted and too close of an area. If you do keep them together, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that because then you're going to get the defense 9 King's Champion along with a defense 9 Durin, and you're going to have banners going around. And Durin and the King's Champion can do a really good job of helping to, defend those Heralds from getting attacked. If you have to split them up for whatever reason, because you need to go pursue an objective and you have to split the 2 heroes apart, then definitely send one of the Heralds with Durin so he can get that banner effect along with Durin's axe so that you can have, quote unquote 5 dice in the fight like I talked about earlier. All right. Moving on. Oh man, this one's going long. Shieldbearer is the final hero, and then we've got a few warriors to cover real quick, and I'll go through them quickly. Shieldbearers fight 5, strength 4, defense 8, 2 attack, 2 wounds, courage 4, 1 might, no will, no fate. He is a minor hero. I guess that's something I should have been talking about this whole time. I'm sorry. Let me just do a quick back check. King's Champion is a hero of fortitude. So is the Dwarf Captain and the Dwarf King, as is Mardin and Floi. And then Balin is a hero of legend. And then I already talked about the whole thing with like Ori and Owen and Gimli. They just become fortitude. Alright, so Shieldbearer. He has dwarf armor, shield, and axe. He has a special rule. in defense of the king. At the start of the game, nominate a single dwarf hero model with the highest heroic tier for the shield bearer to protect. Basically, it's either going to be Durin or if you play with Balin, because they're legends. If you don't take Balin, I don't honestly see you playing Kingdoms of Khazad-dûm without taking one of those two heroes, because it basically becomes impossible. If you take Mardin, all you're going to end up being able to take are King's Champions, Dwarf Captains, and Dwarf Kings. If you take Floi, then all you can take is the same thing. So you can't even take Ori, Owen, and Gimli because you don't have Balin. And it says that if you take Balin, you can take those three. So if you don't take Balin, you don't have access to those three. So basically, the shield bearer will be nominating either Durin or Balin, depending on how you're playing your loadout. Anyway, back to it. You nominate the dwarf hero with the highest tier for him to protect. Like I just said, it's one of those two. If the nominated hero model is engaged in a fight within 3 inches of the shield bearer, then the shield bearer may call a heroic combat without using might. If the heroic combat is successful, then they must use a following move to join their nominated hero's combat. If this is not possible, then the shield bearer must move as close as possible to that hero model. If you have more than one shield bearer, they may protect different. They may both protect different hero models. Just remember to make it clear to your opponent which shield bearer is protecting which hero model. So that's pretty cool. I think Sam has a similar effect where Frodo's in a combat. He can call a heroic combat for free and try and get to Frodo. Basically, I tried playing with a shield bearer for a little bit. They're not bad. 2 attacks, 2 wounds. Fight 5. The downside is they have no heroic strike or anything. So you throw them along with maybe one other warrior dwarf. And I actually like to usually try and put them with a Iron Guard. And I'll tell you why in a second here when we get to Iron Guard. That way you have a very good chance of... actually, I'll just tell you now. Iron Guard have to attack. So you have 4 dice in the fight. Hopefully you have a banner nearby, so you get that 5th dice. Good chance of rolling a 6, hopefully, with 5 dice, including the reroll. Fight 5. Go fight something that's lower, that has no striker or is a lower fight value, unless you're playing elves. And you kill it, and then you get to move 2 guys. So the Iron Guard can go help somebody else in the fight, or go take on another model, do some trapping, do what needs to be done. And then you move the shield bearer over there to help out Balin or Durin. And that's a good way to get yourself more dice in a fight with your heroes. Again, dwarves lack killing power because of the fact that they don't have knockdown ability. No mounted heroes for Kingdoms of Khazad-dûm. So the way to get kills is to stack as many dice in a fight as possible, or to get traps. And having the ability to call a free heroic combat every turn and then go into a fight and potentially get a trap in there is a great way to ensure kills or multiple wounds against bigger things with your heroes. Okay, but the shield bearer has one other thing, and that's lead by example, and that is friendly dwarf models within 12 inches of a shield bearer may re-roll failed courage checks. So pretty good there as well. It says friendly dwarf models, so that includes heroes as well. And failed courage checks, that's for breaking. You do a courage check for breaking. You say you're broken, you fail a courage check with a hero who can do a stand fast. Hey, re-roll it. You're within 12 inches of the shield bearer. Not bad at all. So those are the heroes. Long video already. I do apologize. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more profiles. We're going to fly through these guys. We're going to fly through these. So warrior, fight 4, strength 3, defense 6, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 4. They can be given Warhorn, Banner, Dwarf Bow, Shield, or they can swap their axe, because they have axe and dwarf armor for their war gear, for 2-handed axe and a dagger. So doing that would basically mean if you fight with a dagger, you can feint. I don't think I've ever seen anybody... Well, I mean, maybe some folks do it, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody feint with them. So yeah. I already talked about Khazad Guard, how good they are. Iron Guard, one of my favorites, but they are the elite unit. They are unfortunately a very expensive elite unit. They are fight 4, strength 4, defense 6. So they are the quote unquote squishy dwarfs, because the dwarf warriors defense 6, and most people just give them a shield to give a defense 7 front line. Oh, excuse me. So these defense 6 guys are quote unquote squishy. And you won't believe it, but most folks actually target these with bow fire, so they do end up getting squishy. So the defense or strength 2 bows will wound them on straight 6s, where defense 7 is a 6x4. So that's why they become a little bit squishy, especially when they're purposefully targeted. And there's a reason why. They're 2 attacks, 2 attack, 1 wound, courage 4. They have sword and throwing axes. So you're charging these guys in, usually in my way of doing it, is on flanks, and using those throwing axes to try and get a kill, because remember, throwing axes are strength 3, and there's a lot of defense 5 and armor, or defense 5 or lower armies out there, which means you have a good chance, if you go against one of those, to get a kill on a 5, and then be able to go take out another guy. And with 2 attacks, you're going to be out attacking things, unless they're like what's their name? Feral Uruk-hai, Berserker Uruk-hai, or those guys from the Serpent Horde that can be given 2 twin blades. I can't think of their name right there. Pretty bad, because I used to have to fight them a lot, and they used to tick me off a whole bunch. Watcher Karna, that's it. Yeah, so Iron Guard are nothing to laugh at. They are one of my favorite. I would try to squeeze in 6. That was usually my go-to, was 6 of them. If I couldn't, because they are so expensive, at least 4. All right. Dwarf Rangers, don't really see them a lot. Sad as it is to say, but there's just better alternatives out there. The biggest difference between them and a Dwarf Warrior, because they are the same points, is a Dwarf Warrior is 4+ shoot value. Dwarf Ranger is 3+ shoot value. They are the same base points, because a Ranger's defense 5 and a Warrior's defense 6, and there's no way for the Ranger to get any higher. They don't have access to shields. They do have Dwarf Longbows, though. The difference, and then the Dwarf Warriors have Dwarf Bow. The difference between the Dwarf Longbow and the Dwarf Bow by the Warriors is an 18-inch range, but it's strength 3, and the Dwarf Longbow with the Rangers is 24-inch range, strength 2. So I like to actually sprinkle them a little bit. I'll take about 2 and 2 of each if I can. If you're putting like 2 in each warband for shooting, I'll take 1 Ranger and 1 Warrior with a bow. That way I have guys that can kind of shoot, make you come to me a little bit. I'll have like 3 or 4 guys that can shoot 24 inches. And then when you get within range, I'll have 6 guys shooting, within 18 inches, 3 of them being strength 3, 3 of them being strength 2. They also have Mountain Dweller, and then you can give them throwing axes and 2-handed axes as well. Now for one of the coolest units, and literally the only thing that can give support, and that is the Vault Warden team. So the Vault Warden team makes up 2 members, kind of like the King's Champion. It's the Iron Shield and a Foe Spear. So the Iron Shield is Fight 4, Strength 4, Defense 9, 1 attack, 1 wound, Courage 4. He's got Heavy Dwarf Armor, Axe, and the Iron Shield, which is why he's Defense 9. The Iron Shield... So Iron Shield. The rules for it is a model armed with it cannot be barged or hurled, and is unaffected by the Ren Brutal Power Attack. Pretty damn good. These were things in the lore that they used to take on cave trolls, and that would be why you can't hurl them, you can't rend them, you can't barge them. They are just, you're not moving them. You're not moving them, period. All right? Special rule, Spear and Shield. Unless supported by a model with a Foe Spear, a model with an Iron Shield applies a -1 penalty to their dual rule, even when shielding. Okay? And that's huge, because it's like, okay, cool, that's no problem. You got to be careful. Folks will shoot and just specifically target the Foe Spear. That being said, make sure you have line of sight, because if your Foe Spear is directly behind the Iron Shield, you can't see him. I'm going to tell you that right now. You can't see him. The Iron Shield is large enough that it completely removes line of sight. The only thing you can see really is the Foe Spear itself. And War Gear technically doesn't count. So the Foe Spear, Dwarf Armor and Foe Spear for War Gear. Strength 4, Fight 4, Defense 6, 1 attack, 1 wound. Courage 4. So you got 2 guys in a fight that are going to support each other, and they're both going to be Strength 4. So that's big too. The Foe Spear has the same thing as before. It is a spear that, when supporting a model with an Iron Shield, receives a bonus of +1 when rolling to wound monsters. So monsters are, I feel like they're kind of like a dying breed almost. You just see some big ones, like you still see eagles now and then, of course fell beasts, but a lot of folks have stopped taking like trolls and things like that. They just are too easily tied up in this edition unless you're really good at doing the smart plays like barging or, you know, setting yourself up to hurl down a line if you have priority. But monsters are kind of I wouldn't say they're dying. They're just, top table armies aren't playing them as much. That being said, I don't really see a lot of top table Kingdoms of Khazad-dûm armies. So they are a fun army. They just definitely did not get they definitely got hurt in this edition. Let me talk about the Dwarf Ballista real quick, and then I'll tell you why they got hurt, because I said that earlier. So the Dwarf Ballista is a siege weapon. It is a small siege weapon. It's crewed by 2 dwarves with heavy armor and axe. One is a siege veteran. Oh, excuse me. They have the Dwarf Khazad-dûm infantry and warrior keywords. Outside of the siege veteran, who would have the minor hero keyword, or independent. I think he's a minor hero. It is minor hero. All right, so it's strength 9, defense 10, 3 wounds, piercing shot. If a shot from a dwarf ballista hits a battlefield target, then they will suffer 1 strength 9 hit. Additionally, if the target is strength 5 or lower, they will be knocked prone and flung d6 inches directly away from the ballista. Any model that the target passes over will also be knocked prone and suffer 1 strength 6 hit. If the target comes into a contact with a piece of impassable terrain or a model that is strength 6 or higher, then it will immediately stop and be knocked prone. Both the target and the obstacle or model, if it has a defense value, will suffer a strength 6 hit. So basically, you take the strength 9 hit, you get flung back d6 inches. Everything you go through, unless it's strength 6 or higher, gets knocked prone and also takes a strength 6 hit. And when you finally reach your final destination, you and the final thing also take another strength 6 hit. This is accurate, so it scatters only 3. Now, this is line of sight shooting because of how it works. So if it's scattered and the line of sight for the shot passes through your own model, guess what? You just shot your own model. And yes, this is in the FAQ. It's annoying as hell, I know. But it makes it so that you have to be very intelligent with where you deploy it and how and what you shoot at. So just remember that. The upgrades are flaming ammunition, dwarf engineer captain, and additional crew. I actually think it's not a bad idea to buy maybe 1 or 2 additional crew members just so that you can move this thing around a little bit easier. And if for some reason one guy gets shot out, because you need a minimum of 2 guys, I believe, to operate a piece of war gear. And with them only having 2, if you lose one, then you can no longer shoot. And since they're attached to it, they must stay within 6 inches of the piece of the war gear. So maybe buying 1 or 2 extra dwarfs isn't a bad idea. I think 1 would be better personally. That kind of makes it like the Avenger Bolt Thrower and the Mordor Siege Bow, where you've got 3 guys manning it. I personally think that's not a bad idea to do. So yeah, that's everything. Long video, I know, but this is a bigger army. So this is going to be one of my longest videos to date, and I do apologize. Well, I guess I should actually cover something else real quick before I tell you what I was going to say about why they're weaker. We should look at their army bonus and then also their allies. So their army bonus is all dwarf models with either the Khazad-dûm or Moria keyword may re-roll to wound rolls of 1 when fighting in close combat. So basically you can feint for free, which is, again, just another reason why I don't see a big deal of putting two-handed axes on strength 3 warrior models, because you're already going to be re-rolling 1 for free. You don't need that dagger to fight with, to feint with, and they're warrior models, so give them the shield, make them defense 7. The biggest tactic to do is just to take basic shield wielding dwarf warriors, put them on edges, put them in the middle of your ranks, and have them shield. I know that sounds really bad, but most armies, okay, I won't say most, but one of the most common armies you see is sword and shield walls. Well, these guys don't have that. The only thing that has that ability is with a Vault Warden team. So if you go fight a sword and shield wall army, you're going to be at a disadvantage in every fight. You're going to be fighting 2 against 1. So shielding can give you that 2 versus 2 ability advantage. Why is this important? Because it gives you the ability to stay around. Yes, you're not going to be striking, but you put your heroes in positions where they can go kill things, and then you utilize the ability of your elite units. Again, remember I said I have played this army in the new edition, and I play with Durin, Mardin, and the King's Champion. Okay, so the Mardin is the weakest. I actually stopped taking Mardin at one point and putting in a Dwarf King just so I could have access to March, which is something that you're going to want to have mobility-wise in scenarios where you need it. And then, yeah, you give up a point of might, but you have another Fight 6 hero, and he's Strength 4. So, Defense 8, so he's going to stay around a little bit better, too, than Mardin. He's just a better hero, in my opinion. For the same point, the Dwarf King and Mardin the same points, and I think I'm willing to give up a point of might in order to gain March. And then having Heroic Resolve with 2 points of will is nothing to laugh at, because Heroic Resolve, when done, gives you that AoE bubble for everybody to have resistance to magic. So if you're fighting a spellcaster army, that can be very useful as well. You can do that twice. Remember, Heroic Resolve you must call during the movement phase. And then when you call it, the hero cannot move. So you're not calling this if you're out of combat, or I'm sorry, if you're out of like combat charging range. You're calling this when your armies are close together, because he can't move. I think it's a 6-inch bubble, if I remember correctly. Go check out my heroic actions video to verify that. But yeah, you take the Dwarf King, I think. You take Durin. You take King's Champion. And then you just put the King's Champion, you put Durin near each other. And then you, like I said, you take a healthy amount of Khazad Guard, who become Hearth Guard. You upgrade them. I think 8 to 10 is not bad. It depends on your points. If you're playing 6 to 700 point range, you're looking at 8. If you're playing that 7 to 800 point range, I'm definitely thinking 10. And then you just have these guys who are basically can openers. You put them near their leaders, near Durin, near King's Champion, so they're going to have banner ability. And they're going to charge and everything, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be pushing your line forward. They're going to be pushing up and pushing into your enemies, and they're going to be killing stuff, and they're doing stuff like that. So those are your can openers. And then don't forget, you're going to have Iron Guard, who I think are good on the edge, so you can put them behind your Defense 7 Dwarf Warriors for the time it takes to get into combat, and then have them loop around the side and attack the side and attack the flanks. That way they can get around the backside. They can then support your Dwarf Warriors who have shields on the edges. And you can go ahead and throw a Dwarf Warrior with an Iron Guard into a fight and have them fighting 3 against 2 if it's a shield and spear wall like I was talking about, or 3 against 1. Or have the Iron Guard go and take on the spear and have the Warrior fight 1-on-1. That's a situation where if you're fighting 1-on-1 against a shield and spear wall, and you've pulled the spear with another Warrior, or an Iron Guard, or a Khazad Guard, Hearth Guard, whatever, or something like that, and you've got that front guy trapped in, definitely go ahead, fight 1-on-1. Make him shield. Make him feel the fear, because then if you have the ability to call the fights and dictate the fights with priority, you can fight that first, and if you trap him, then you're going to be throwing 2 dice to wound him. And then when you fight with the Iron Guard, if you're using my tactic, and the Iron Guard's going to be fighting against the spear on the second rank, then you're fighting 2 against 1 again. Again, he's going to probably shield, if they have it. Not all armies that are shield and spear walls can have shields on their second rank. I'm thinking fiefdoms here with the men-at-arms. Men-at-arms don't carry shields. But if you make them shield, then you can go ahead and throw your 2 attacks. You basically are turning the tides against it. So I think the biggest tactic, and it's one that folks don't think about, put the shields on your warriors, take your warriors, sprinkle them where you need to go, and go and shield. Go and hold the flank, have them basically be fighting like Spartans from 300, where they're just holding holding up their shields, and then waiting for the opportunity to push them back and swipe in and do the kills, okay? That's my thought process with that. I definitely think that taking a Dwarf Ballista is a necessary evil, just because of the fact you're only moving 5 inches. Even with a march, with a king or a captain, you're moving 8 inches. You have no cavalry whatsoever. I mean, Iron Hills has goat riders to kind of help mitigate that a little bit. But Kingdom of Khazad-dûm doesn't have any of that. So Dwarf Ballista is definitely something I think you should take. Again, be mindful where you deploy it at and what you're shooting at. If there's a possibility where 3 inches either way on the scatter and it's going to go through your guy, because it's line of sight shooting, if it goes through your guy, you're going to be hitting your own guy on a scatter. Okay? I hope that makes sense. I mean, think about it. All right, so I think it makes sense. I'm not going to try and verbally explain it to you, but if it scatters to another guy and that line of sight drawn between the ballista and the other guy crosses through your own dude, your guy is going to take the shot. And this is in the errata. Again, I will say that somebody specifically asked how this works, and that was specifically written out how it works. Okay. One last thing, I'm going to go look at their allies, but I'm pretty darn sure they are yellow with everything and red for the most part. Like I said, if you take Balin, then they become red for everybody. They're impossible allies with everybody. Okay, so here we go. So Kingdom of Khazad-dûm, they are yellow allies with Arnor. That's interesting. Never thought about that. Yeah, Arvedui and some Arnorian guys going and working together with Durin. That'd be cool. So yeah, they're convenient allies with Arnor. They are convenient allies with Fangorn. That's interesting. They are convenient allies with Lothlorien. Is that Lothlorien? No, I'm sorry. That is Halls of Thranduil. Blade by last. Oh no. Yeah, it's Halls of Thranduil. Sorry. They are yellow allies with... Yeah, they are yellow allies with Lothlorien. I just looked one ahead. They are yellow allies with the Misty Mountains. They are yellow allies with Rivendell. And they are yellow allies with the White Council. So, maybe give up your ability to reroll 1s to wound to add a spellcaster. I think maybe allying in Gandalf the Grey with Blinding Light would be a great idea to protect you against a shooting heavy army. You're already going to have a hard time being wounded just because of your high defense. Why make it, why give them the ability to sit back and just pop shots forever and ever and ever? Or kite you if they're a Rivendell Knights type army or a Rohan army or a Khand army that has a lot of mobility. Put Gandalf in there, put him in the middle, defend him, throw up maybe spend a point of might, a point of will, and his freebie, channel Blinding Light, just pull your dwarves in close and sit there. Hopefully you have some shots of your own, shoot back. Not a bad idea. I never thought of that. Kind of makes me want to wish I could try it now, but unfortunately I no longer have my dwarves. So yeah, very long review. I do apologize. Oh, finally, last thing I said. Okay, so I've said this 3 times. I still haven't talked about it. But what I used to take was Gimli, King's Champion, and Durin. All right, so I know folks are like, well, okay, what's the big deal? Well, basically I had three attack heroes. That was the big deal. Now in the current edition, the current way it's written, you can at best you can only have 2 3 attack heroes and that's if you take Durin and the King's Champ. I mean, you can take multiple King's Champs because King's Champ is considered an unnamed hero. Crazy as that sounds. But he's very pointy, and I don't see you taking 2 of them. Not only that, you've then got to account for 4 different heralds, and there are several scenarios out there where assassination and fog of war can really screw you over. Not only that, but also so can Ill Met by Moonlight, which is a scenario where you're targeting enemy heroes to kill and gives you the chance to kill more, gives your opponent the chance to kill more enemy heroes. That being said, they do have banners, so you're going to have guys with banners. Yeah, that's everything. I'm going to end it there. Pushing 15 minutes for this review. I do apologize, but I think it's a good, fun army. I definitely think it's one of those ones where if you're just having a pickup game, you're just having some fun, or you're going to an event and just having fun, it can be a really fun army to play with. I don't think it's a top tier army anymore. I don't think it ever really was, but it is a fun one to play. I do miss playing it, but I have moved on to greener pastures. I say that not knowing what army I moved on to that was any more fun. But until next time, guys, thank you. If there's an army you want me to review, please leave it in the comment section below. Please smash the like, share, subscribe button. And I will see you next time on a Tolkien Fanatics adventure.